Good afternoon, everyone. Before we begin today's session, can I just draw your attention to the protocols on the screen in front of you? In particular, can you make sure that your microphone is muted and that your camera is switched off? If you leave your camera switched on, since this is being recorded, you're likely to appear in the recording. Okay, thank you. So welcome to this session this afternoon. Thank you for joining us at the end of what I'm sure has been a very busy day. And today's session is called Improving Equity Through Self-Evaluation, but with a particular focus on the cost of the school day. Joining me at this session today are Avril McNeil, the head teacher of GLENROTHES High School, Sarah Spencer from CPAG in Scotland, and my colleague Liz Somerville, an attainment advisor with Education Scotland. My name is Brendan Duffy, an attainment advisor with Education Scotland. There's three parts to today's session. The first part, we're just going to draw your attention and make you aware of, if you aren't already aware of, the Attainment Challenge Self-Evaluation Resource. We're then going to hear from Sarah, who's going to take you through the CPAG resources around cost of the school day. And then finally, we're going to hear from Avril, and she's going to tell us about her approach in GLENROTHES High School to reducing the cost of the school day. So first of all, I'm going to spend a little bit of time just talking about the Scottish Attainment Challenge, the SAC Self-Evaluation Resource. This resource was first published in December 2019. The purpose of the resource is to support the achievement of equity in Scottish education. This resource is designed to assist schools, local authorities, regional improvement collaboratives and local and national partners in bringing about further improvement at this time of recovery. The resource has been used widely by schools and local authorities to support their work in relation to achieving equity. When using the resource in conjunction with other Education Scotland self-evaluation frameworks, schools and others may find it helpful to use different themes to focus on aspects of their work in relation to achieving equity. The features of highly effective practice and challenge questions provide the opportunity to drill deeper into the evidence that supports their conclusions to strengthen ongoing self-evaluation. The themes can also be linked to the quality indicators and other self-evaluation frameworks, but should not be confused with or considered to be quality indicators in themselves. And the resource, importantly, has been updated to reflect the impact of COVID. The themes for self-evaluation are related to the Scottish Attainment Challenge and the National Improvement Framework. The themes include a mixture of the primary levers for change, interventions for equity and policy priorities. It should be noted that each of the themes are interrelated and different aspects could easily sit under more than one theme. To support evaluation, there are features of highly effective practice and challenge questions. And today we are going to focus on the theme family and communities, but with a particular focus on the cost of the school day.
Brendan, can I interrupt you? Can I just triple check, is everybody seeing the correct slide? I'm still stuck on the Holden slide here, so your slides aren't moving on.
Is that the same for everyone, or can everyone see the slide that says themes?
That's it now, okay, thank you.
And has it moved on now for everyone? Okay. The features of highly effective practice are included to illustrate examples of evidence of impact towards closing the poverty-related attainment gap. The examples are drawn from the wide range of evidence and based on the work going on in schools and local authorities across Scotland. The examples are not a definitive list under each of the themes. Challenge questions have also been included within this resource to support professional dialogue and point to aspects of practice that might require further improvement. Some of the challenge questions may be more relevant depending on your own context, who is using them and for what exact purpose. Some of the questions are particularly focused on schools and classrooms, while others are provided to focus on local authority and regional improvement. An additional set of questions relating to the impact of COVID-19 has been included for each theme. These can be used independently or with others from within the resource. We're now going to just go a bit further into self-evaluation, but with a particular focus on the CPAG resources.
Great, thank you very much, Brendan, and hello everyone. It's great to see you all here today. I am going to talk in this section of the session today. I'm going to talk about gathering the evidence needed to answer some of those challenge questions in the self-evaluation resource. Evidence that firstly lets you know how you're doing, and secondly is able to drive improvement for your families when it comes to the cost of the school day. I'm going to focus on the newly updated cost of the school day toolkit that you can see a wee picture of here. That's hot off the press, just launched today. All of the resources in there are designed to help you understand some really simple but really important things. Firstly, what is it like to go to your school if you're on a low income? And secondly, where there are income-related barriers to learning, to participation, to well-being, what can you do about them? So cost of the school day has a really simple starting point of how can children and young people possibly benefit from any intervention designed to weaken the link between poverty and attainment if we don't attend to the actual practical barriers that exist around, all these things: uniform, clubs, trips, devices, food, all the barriers that can stand in the way of children and young people taking part, feeling included and making the most of things. So the toolkit is there as a set of resources to help involve children, parents and staff in thinking about where difficulties might lie and what changes to policies, practices, approaches throughout the school day that might help to reduce costs, reduce stigma and help take some of those financial pressures away. There are no one-size-fits-all solutions. They will be as unique as your school community, but the bullet points there in the blue box, they're taken from an independent evaluation of cost of the school day, and they show a few of the brilliant things that can be achieved more broadly. So there are lots of different cost of the school day connections. SAC, obviously, GERFEC, pupil voice, family learning, lots and lots of different things like that. But one important connection is towards tackling child poverty. And I think it's important to remind ourselves why this work matters so much in the current climate. One of the main things that drives child poverty rates upwards is the cost of living. Poverty-aware schools help to reduce the cost of living for families in that one specific, small, significant way. Even before COVID, over a quarter of children and young people in Scotland were living in households where the resources coming in just aren't enough. Estimated child poverty rates in every local authority have been rising. And most children in poverty, as I'm sure you'll be aware, over two thirds are living in households where someone's working, but because of things like low pay, precarious employment, social security cuts or freezes, it's not enough to keep families afloat. So that means children living in households where getting by is a struggle and where there are difficulties taking part in just the everyday normal sort of activities. We have yet to see the full financial impact of COVID, but it's estimated that hundreds of thousands of children will have been pushed into poverty, with everything that involves for their parents or their carers, stress, pressure, cutting corners, getting into debt, and for children themselves, both right now in terms of their well-being and their day-to-day lives, and in terms of impact on their future outcomes. So I know that many of you, all of you potentially, are likely to have seen lots of this play out in your schools over the last wee while. And I suppose that, yeah, in this context, it means that preventative and poverty-aware approaches and policies and practices are just even more important than ever. So the Cost of the School Day Toolkit, it's just been updated, as I say, for 2021. It first came out in 2018. It's been updated with new resources. And as usual, it's available on our website, and you can see the link there. There's everything in the kitchen sink in the toolkit, so you know there's no intention that everyone uses everything. It's a set of resources for people to pick and choose from and dip in and out of. And also, while there are a set of principles behind it all, I suppose, that you can see there in the bullet points, you know, it's not rocket science. It's a simple process that's designed to be flexible and fit in with all the stuff that you're doing already. The resources in the toolkit are organised around these different steps that you can see here, and I'll briefly run through these just now. Okay, so step one, do the groundwork. So this means setting things up for the work to be understood, to be valued and embedded. And this stage is really important because it brings people along with you on the journey. It gets buy-in from everyone. Lots of awareness raising can be done at this stage. You know, staff, parents, parent councils, children, young people, the whole school community, partners as well. You know, how can everyone get involved in making your school an inclusive place where everyone can take part and belong? In the toolkit, there's loads to support this. There is up-to-date information on child poverty, policy links, learning on the things that help to sustain this approach in schools and local authorities, slides to share at inset days and so on, nice examples of pupil equity groups, lots and lots of different bits and pieces that can be used to kind of lay the groundwork for what you're going to go on to do and kick things off. Step two, involving your school community. Involving them in identifying cost barriers and also possible solutions, things that can be done. Having a really broad approach, trying to involve as many different people as possible, and having a really visible approach is helpful here. One school described it as a no shame approach, by which they meant trying to move beyond the trickiness that sometimes exists when we're talking about costs or financial stuff at school, towards saying, you know, okay, any of us, and COVID has really shown that, any of us can be in financial difficulty. We don't want to put unnecessary pressure on anyone, and we want to make sure everyone's included. Tell us how we go about that. So in the toolkit, there are tools for participatory sessions and chats with children and parents, surveys that you can take and adapt for your school context, reflective questions, an audit tool to get a clear idea of costs, parent council resources, lots more. And as I say, it's about picking and choosing and using what you need. One can turn their microphones off, that would be great, thank you. So step three, taking all of that information to do a bit of action planning. There are Word and Excel action plan templates in the toolkit, which you can use to prioritise your information, set outcomes, set tasks, timescales, and monitor what you're doing. This is the template on the slide here, and you can see the example is around a clothing grant uptake. And you can see in the baseline information column, the second from the left, just the sort of range and different types of evidence that can be brought to bear on a particular topic. Here you've got survey data, young people's words from focus groups, and really importantly, you know, the use of staff knowledge of their communities and their contexts. So lots of data that can be put in there and chewed over to decide what to do next. Oops. I knew I couldn't get through this without, oh, have the slides just disappeared for everyone there? I knew I wouldn't get through this without a technical nightmare. One moment. There, we're back. Okay, so step 4, putting actions in place. And this is about trying things out to reduce costs and support families. You can see lots of different examples here, just taken from school Twitter accounts. Some actions might be longer term, you know, say reviewing uniform policy, something like that. Some might require funding, you know, subsidising trips, or you know, things like that. But there are always going to be, I think, quick win kind of small changes to practice that can make a really big difference. So, for example, if parents are telling you that they feel like costs are sprung on them, you know, quite frequently with little notice, you know, maybe you go on to review those costs and with the aim of reducing them or removing them. But a quick first step could be producing a cost calendar for the year ahead. So small things like that can really make a bit of a difference. And I think some of the most powerful things you can do can involve small tweaks rather than, you know, seismic sort of changes. Taking the time to look at the cost of your school day in a planned and thorough way can lead to lots of changes, small and big. I jotted down these examples really sort of off the top of my head while I was putting this slide together, and I think I could have filled another dozen because there is so much going on out there. In step 4 of the toolkit, there are lots of practice examples from schools across the country, so please have a wee look for inspiration. Also on our website, there are some short films with young people and staff chatting about cost of the school day in their schools. So again, have a wee look at that for ideas. Also in this section, there is lots of information on financial support that's out there for families on low incomes, school-based entitlements, but also things like, you know, Scottish Child Payment, Best Start grants, pandemic support, and things like that. Okay. Step 5, the final step. So regularly revisiting your action plan, this whole area. You know, things change for the school, for families, in your community, for the economy, and families come in and out of the school all the time. So it's never a done deal, but something to keep coming back to. And I think one way to keep this on the radar is to celebrate and share successes and all of the things that you're doing. Because it's not all about barriers and problems, this bit of work. What will also come out of this when you're talking to children and talking to parents and your colleagues, what will also come out of it is the really brilliant things that you're doing already that make a really big difference. And that is absolutely something to shout about. Parents in particular always say to us that they really notice when their schools are doing things to take the pressure off. So here are the challenge questions again that Brendan showed. And just from this sort of quick run through, I hope it's clear enough the ways that the toolkit could be used to gain insight into some of them. I think the resources can help you review your school policies and procedures, and be clear on participation barriers and the correct mitigations against those. They can help gather insight from children and parents into how well staff and partners are responding to their needs and where that can improve. They can help to develop that sound understanding in staff of the importance of removing cost barriers, and they can also help to develop. They can also help to engage children and parents and partners in reviewing all of this and telling you what impact your interventions and your approaches have had. And all of this is going to help you track and monitor your progress towards equity in this area. Very lastly, I wanted to share something that shows the effect this has on families. You will know this from work that you're doing in your schools. These quotes are from our resource called Talking About Costs and Money at School. The link is just up at the top right of the slide there, so please have a look because it's packed full of really brilliant tips and advice from parents on effective communication in this area. We had asked parents how it felt approaching their school with cost and money concerns. And lots of them, and you can see these on the left-hand side of the slide, lots of them described horrible feelings that, you know, we wouldn't want anyone to be feeling, like, you know, guilt, shame, embarrassment, feeling degraded, feeling uncomfortable, judged, afraid. And I think it's really important to keep that at the forefront of our minds. You know, this is how people can feel. But other parents responded with comments like the ones on the right-hand side, and they said that their schools were doing amazing things just by understanding the cost of the school day and visibly doing what they could to mitigate against it. So I think those comments are equally powerful in showing the difference we can make. You know, removing shame, easing the weight, helping with access to entitlements, taking away those hurdles and those barriers that stand in children and young people's ways. All of that is huge. So contact details are here. Please do get in touch with questions, or if our team can be of any help. That is absolutely what we're here for. But what I am going to do now is hand over to Avril McNeill, who's rector at GLENROTHES High School in Fife. And GLENROTHES High have done lots of amazing work in this area, and inspectors recently pointed out their highly effective cost of the school day practice. So I'm going to hand over to Avril to tell you more.
Thanks, Sarah. Hello everyone, I hope you've had an okay day, and thanks for joining us after a hard shift at the chalk face. So I'm going to start off by hopefully sharing with you just a wee presentation, and what I would hope is that you're actually going to get some practical tips to take away. So putting the theory into practice, is that sharing with you okay? Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so my name is Avril McNeill, and I am the head teacher or the rector of GLENROTHES High School. I've been in post for just over 7 years, and round about December 2019, we were inspected in a short model, and it was a really hugely positive experience, I would have to say. I'm saying that to you because we were one of the last schools probably before lockdown that were inspected, and obviously you will be potentially being revisited now that inspections have resumed, so good news for everyone all round. So the two things that I would probably say to you in terms of the biggest takeaways, one would be knowing your families, right? These are the two things that I think have had the greatest impact for us. One has been really close links with our cluster, absolutely knowing our families, knowing our young people inside out, knowing who they all are, knowing their context. And that has come through self-evaluation and relationships, and also being able to track all of that. The other thing that we've done, I suppose, has been really quite robust self-evaluation around what we're actually doing at GLENROTHES High School. So I suppose one of the things I would say to you are we were highlighted for excellent practice or outstanding practice in terms of reducing the cost of the school day. But we were also highlighted for bridging or attempting to bridge the poverty-related attainment gap. So for QI 3.2, it was a short model. We were just short of very good, but very close to it. And we have rated ourselves through validated self-evaluation as very good for QI 3.1. Okay, so a lot of that was centred around the culture and ethos that we have created. As a school, we are hugely child-centred and inclusive. We've developed a supportive culture and a really aspirational vision for our whole school. And that includes not just our young people and our staff, but our wider community too. And that's reflected in our school vision and values. Our lead inspector said that our vision and values were lived and breathed from top to bottom. And we were absolutely delighted about that, because it was very much about social justice and building a culture of support, caring for our families, but absolutely improving the life chances of the young people that come through our doors. So GLENROTHES High School cares. Those values were absolutely, they were resolutely in place. So what did we do? One of the first things that we did was we looked at our socioeconomic context, and we did that as a cluster. So we had a whole cluster approach to that. And we made sure that we all were very clear around what the actual context of our school was and our cluster schools were. So we did a few things. The first thing that we did was we basically did some CLPL sessions, and as a community, we looked at our changing context. So this is where the self-evaluation comes in. We really drilled into our community and the way that it had changed. We used labour market information. We looked at the fact that our kind of housing stock had changed, as mentioned earlier. A lot that were in deciles 5 and 6 were actually privately rented accommodation, and the young people and families that were living there were actually in deciles 1 and 2. So our context really changed. Our FME was way above, and still is way above national average at around 23%. About 86% of our youngsters live in deciles 1 to 5, with the young people living in deciles 1 to 3 having doubled. I'm going to show you something in a wee bit about the way that we track things, and we do that very robustly, but we also drill into the information around our families. And what we have discovered is that looking at our families, over half of our families are actually split families. So they live between more than 2 households, and that has a significant impact on the young people that we're caring for. We have a higher number of care experienced young people, young carers, children with complex additional support needs, and we had quite a significant group of young people whose attendance was really low. When we drilled into that, we found that the main causes were due to domestic violence, anxiety and mental health issues. So as a cluster, we looked at Hineas, how nurturing is our school, and we put a cluster plan together. We looked at attachment theory. You can see that on the right hand side, where we brought in some counsellors to help us look at attachment theory and how that affects young people. We brought in key speakers like Sir John Jones and Chris Kilkenny, did some work around trauma-informed practice, and now on how we would keep the promise. And that was very much about our journey towards inclusion and a whole school nurturing approach. When we were inspected, the staff feedback in the questionnaire stated that over 98% of our staff absolutely unequivocally understood the context of our school. So what did we actually do to address those costs of the school day? We did quite a lot of things, and the first thing, Sarah's already mentioned the toolkit. She's got the fancy new version, we used the old one. We used the toolkit and we did an audit with all of our stakeholders. At that time, we had a PEF-funded family link worker, and we surveyed the greatest costs to our families, what were the biggest deals for them. And then we put together an action plan from that. So that was the cost of the school day. The other thing that we did was we underpinned our self-evaluation and the work that we did with CLPL sessions, as mentioned already, but also with professional reading. So we used books like The Poverty Safari, where we looked at reducing the costs of the school curriculum. So that's one major thing that we did prior to the Scottish Government announcing that they would refund schools for that. We used our PEF budget from the outset to remove all costs or disadvantage to learning. So there was no cost attached for any young person for things like home economics, technological subjects, etc. No cost to any barriers to any subjects that young people might want to study. One of the other things that we did was we looked at the book Lynn Sharrett and Michael Fullan's Faces on the Data, and that was very much around self-evaluation and tracking and absolutely knowing who our young people were, who our families are, what are the adverse childhood experiences that they're coming up against, and tracking absolutely everything, including all the protected characteristics. So they were the kind of main theoretical pieces of work that underpinned what we did. And then we used the cost of the school day to cover the costs of travel, learning, uniform, friendships, community, school trips, eating, in particular food poverty, school clubs and home learning. And I'll dip into some of those for you. So these were some of the statements in our SIF, or our summary of inspection findings, some of the things that were deemed to be outstanding practice, and it was very much about our approaches to removing any barriers, economic and social, for our young people in terms of the cost of the school day. As you can see there, the second point, we did actually manage to bridge the poverty-related attainment gap in terms of the interventions that we put in place, and that was over a period of around 5 to 6 years. And finally, we had a really sharp focus, a laser sharp focus on attendance and how we would use attendance to raise attainment. And that was for all groups of young people. So that was young people with protected characteristics being tracked, including young carers, care experienced children at risk of self-harm, and we did a whole range of different types of outreach work to make sure that our young people were not disadvantaged in terms of finance, accessibility, but also their wider attainment. So we removed the cost of learning and we diversified our curriculum. So what kind of things did we do? In the centre there, you've got a wee picture of our one-stop shop. So that is a really fancy tracking system. And Gary Johnson, our lead inspector, said there isn't anything that you don't know about your young people. So it's a massive spreadsheet that includes absolutely everything, and everything is hyperlinked, including to things like proactive management plans, healthcare plans. It's got their SIMD, it's got their adverse childhood experiences. It's also linked to an intervention spreadsheet so that we know if any families or young people have had interventions in school to support their well-being and their inclusion, or also out with school. So the whole thing is tied together. And from that, we use that to plan lessons. We use that to ensure that we're meeting the needs of our young people. And then we targeted groups, including young carers, bringing them together and building a community around them. But also tracking our most and least able and everyone in between. So we removed the cost of learning. We also identified through our self-evaluation that literacy was a bit of a gap, and we needed to do some work around, in particular, boys' literacy and literacy levels at point of exit from GLENROTHES High School. The other thing that we'd identified was that there was a poverty-related attainment gap. Round about 2014-15, there was a gap of around 300 tariff points in terms of insight between our least and our most affluent young people, and we needed a plan to try and bridge that gap. So one of the things that we did was we started to unpick our curriculum, and we looked at what we were currently offering, what was a bit antiquated and out of date, and we started to look at bespoke pathways for our young people. Again, that was based on labour market information and where the jobs actually were, not just in GLENROTHES, but in Fife, Scotland and further afield. We're now an ambassador school, and we overhauled our curriculum to include foundation apprenticeships. We included HNCs, National Progression Awards, and a combination of packages where our young people could be at college and at school, and sort of hybrid models within that too. So again, through self-evaluation in terms of bridging the participation gap, one of the other things that sits alongside our one-stop shop is a database that tracks all participation in school and out with. So it includes all wider achievement, it includes any extracurricular activities that you may or may not get involved in. And then we started to drill into that data to see who were the kids that weren't actually getting involved in anything at all. So that was twinned with the targeted groups in terms of attendance. So what we did find was that it was most likely to be our BGE pupils who were in deciles 1 to 3, who were not participating in anything at all. And then we started to look at our most at-risk learners, and we developed bespoke packages around them too. So this here is a picture of our F24 group. That was a group of young people, many of whom were care experienced, our most at-risk young people in terms of at risk of offending within the community, and they had very low attendance figures, some of which hadn't really attended school much in their first, second or third years. We worked with our partner organisations, and our family link worker did an amazing job of bringing businesses into the fold too. And you can see there one of our young people there holding the first award that he's ever won at school, which was when they went to East Fortune and they raced. They built an F24 car, which is like a go-kart, and they raced it against other schools and organisations. They were voted best newcomer, and they actually managed to get to the national final in Silverstone. The impact on those young people was to do with the leadership skills that they developed, their attendance. So for one young person who had not attended any more than 20% in first, second or third year, after that intervention, his attendance rose to over 98%, and the average number of qualifications that the young people left was 10. So significant impact for that group of young people. In terms of uniform and school dress, I think Sarah touched on this earlier. Uniform, we have free uniform available for any young person that wants it. Ties are provided for free. Some of our seniors will tell you in the next wee clip about some of the things that they get for free, but we also did a great job, I think, of poverty proofing the prom. So we again used local businesses and donations of prom dresses, suits, kilts for hire, and we managed to get local businesses to do haircuts, hairdos and makeup too. We also ensured that there's free brand new PE kit available for anyone that should need it. So what I would like to do is I'm going to hand over to Dylan and Alex, who are going to tell you a little bit about how we've tried to address food poverty.
People come in the mornings to get some food because it's free. Having breakfast in the morning can help people concentrate in their classes. The school even helps issue blazers to house captains and prefects, like this blazer here.
I've also got a blazer and I also help at the breakfast club. I don't have time to have breakfast in the morning, so I have breakfast at school.
So that was Dylan and Alex telling you there about the free universal breakfast club, but some of the most important work that we've done and that was recognised was that we have a highly effective support through our nurture care. This is Sandra Smith, our nurture teacher, and Willow, our therapist, and also Craig Thompson, who's our PT inclusion. They're going to tell you some of the work that we've done in terms of further removing barriers, but ensuring inclusion for all of our young people.
Hi there, I'm Mrs. Smith, nurture teacher in the GLENROTHES High School. This is our nurture base, and this is Willow, our nurture puppy. This is our stock cupboard. We collect and sort all our food in here, so pupils will come along and have some breakfast. We have a lot of partnerships with a lot of different agencies, so Stephen's a bakery, they fund our breakfast club and give us a donation every month. They've donated this fridge freezer for us as well. We have different partnerships with local companies that fund all our different initiatives. We were invited along to the Tesco's Community Cookery School, where a couple of staff were taught different cooking skills. They gave our families £30 vouchers so they could create lovely meals and learn new skills with us. We're also food bank referral agents, and we can issue referral vouchers to families.
Using different partnerships, we created wellbeing packs to give out to different families depending on what their need was. These were handed out during lockdown, but now that school returned, we also hand them out to our families during school time. We don't just hand out food, we also hand out toiletries and wellbeing packs that include colouring, sporting equipment and so on. During lockdown, we handed out lots of different stationery to local businesses so they could hand it out to our young people. We also have a selection of clothes, including winter coats and school uniform, to whoever needs it. The summer trip club was something that we ran in the summer of 2019 and was an opportunity for young people to experience leaving GLENROTHES, to meet up with their friends, and more importantly have something to write about after the summer holidays. I'm sure you're aware that most teachers, I think, after summer say, what did you do in the summer holidays? And a lot of very young people were saying that they didn't have anything to write about. It was really successful. It was 4 different trips. We went to Edinburgh, Stirling, Glasgow and Dundee, as well as St Andrews after Dundee. I really enjoyed it as well. It was good getting to see some of the kids out with the comfort of school. Reading here the feedback, you can see it was very positive, and lots of our young people got different things out of it. Here you can see it helped their mental health, it got them out of the house, and went to places they wouldn't normally get to go to. It also improved the relationship with staff. This is the best thing they liked.
Summer trip club was good because I got some GLENROTHES and I got something to read to it. My attendance is a lot better and I got tons of enough.
We went to Edinburgh, we saw the castle and we went to the festival and I liked it because I got to hang out with my friends.
It was a tough summer for me, but being able to come along to the trip really helped with my mental health.
So that was another way that we had tracked the participation of those young people. We knew and then identified who they were, that weren't likely to go anywhere or do anything, and then we put interventions in place. One of the other things that's been PEF funded has been school trips. Obviously, we've looked at during the summer holidays, but we've also created a Columba 1400 Leadership Academy, and that has been PEF funded. That's something that has really helped to enhance our school values of confidence and resilience. And you can see there that the young people have been doing some outdoor activities, but what was brilliant was that they actually brought back that confidence and leadership into the school. So in June 2021, we were acknowledged with Education Scotland through this lovely sketch note that they designed for us. And some of the things that you've not really heard about were what we did during lockdown. So as a school, in addition to reducing and removing the barriers to the cost of the school day, during lockdown, and Sandra touched on it, our nurture teacher, we actually have, we stop food waste and we get food donations. We issued them not only to our most at-risk families in terms of food parcels, that was through the summer holidays, during the different holidays, but also during the 2 lockdowns. But we targeted our most at-risk families, our ESOL families, but also just families in the community that actually weren't part of the school, and we opened that up for them too. So in addition to addressing the cost of the school day, we also, and you can see this from this next bit here, during the recovery, we delivered wellbeing parcels. So that was young people who perhaps had significant mental health issues, or we knew were on the Child Protection Register, were really at risk. In addition to the frequent visits, we actually provided them with wellbeing packs too. That was in addition to the main stuff that you would also know, you know, free stationery in at the shops, laptops, Wi-Fi tokens, but also really making sure that our families got and received all of the different funding streams that they were actually entitled to. So I'm going to conclude with our blog. If you want to have a look at that, you'll find it on the Education Scotland website. So to summarise and to bring this to a conclusion, what we would say are the main impact of our journey. The two key things that I said at the beginning were robust self-evaluation and absolutely knowing who your families and who your young people are. So knowing that socioeconomic context. And to summarise the impact that we've had, we have bridged the poverty-related attainment gap, reducing tariff scores from over 300 to 17, removed the cost of the school day. We've got a thriving nurture base where young people really are improving their attendance, their attachment and their engagement, and that's leading to improved attainment and wider achievement. We've seen an improvement in literacy, in particular reading scores for young people in the BGE, improving by a mean of about 9 months. We've improved parental engagement and communication through our social media streams. And really, we're very, very proud of the highly effective and inclusive support that we've provided for our community. So ultimately, it's down to culture, it's down to being values driven as a leader and as a person, and really just knowing who your young people are, knowing where your gaps are, and then removing all the barriers in place. And that's me. If you want to get in touch, there's my contact details, and I'm sure Brendan would be happy to give you my personal contact details if you'd like to know anything else about our school or our journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and thank you very much, Avril. I don't know if you'll have seen the chat pane, Avril, as you were presenting there, but some fantastic comments about the work going on in GLENROTHES. And I think really the context that Sarah provided in terms of the toolkit leading into your presentation in terms of the impact that using that approach has had on your young people is tremendous to see. And you've been getting some great comments, as I said, in the chat pane. And the key thing, I think, is the impact it's actually having on the people, the young people in GLENROTHES. So thanks to both of you. I'll just refer you all again to the SAC self-evaluation toolkit, which you mentioned at the start. That kind of approach underpins everything that you've heard about from Sarah and Avril today. Thank you, everyone. Our time is up, so thank you for attending. And thanks again to Sarah and Avril. Goodbye.
Thanks, Brendan. Bye, everyone.